I used to believe that betrayal would come loudly, that it would burst through the front door like a thief, break things, scream, and demand to be noticed. But when it came to me, it arrived as a whisper, a quiet buzz from a phone screen in the soft dark of a rainy morning. He was in the shower, steam curling beneath the bathroom door. I was sitting on the edge of our bed, the sheets still warm from his body. I wasn't snooping, I wasn't suspicious, I wasn't anything really. Just bored, waiting for my turn under the hot water when his phone lit up. I looked out of habit, not intention. One small message, just a name. Small. Last night was unforgettable. I can still taste you. I stared at it, unblinking. I remember my thumb hovering over the screen, not touching it, not daring to open the full thread. That one sentence said enough. It said everything. My stomach turned in on itself. My pulse pounded in my ears. I tried to convince myself it was a prank, a mistake, a number typed wrong. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't the beginning. It was the moment everything cracked open. I stood slowly, put the phone down exactly as I'd found it, walked to the mirror. I looked the same as I had yesterday. Same dark hair falling over my shoulders, same pale eyes. But something inside me was off. Not broken yet, just cracked. Small, he came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, humming a song I didn't recognize. He smiled at me like nothing had changed. "Morning, babe. Shower's all yours." I nodded. My throat was dry. I didn't trust myself to speak. I let the water run over me far longer than necessary. I stood still under the stream, trying to wash away the nausea that had taken root. It didn't leave. The rest of the day was a blur. I moved through it like a ghost. He made breakfast, eggs and toast like always. He kissed my cheek as he left for work. He sent me a mid-morning message. "Hope your day's not as gray as the sky. Love you." I stared at that message for a long time. I didn't answer. I went through the motions. Emails, meetings, lunch with a colleague, all while that single line from the message echoed in my mind. "I can still taste you." That night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to him in the dark, listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing. It used to be comforting. Now it felt rehearsed. Like even in sleep, he was acting. I stared at the ceiling and counted every flaw in the plaster, trying not to imagine him with her. The next morning, I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe it wasn't what it seemed. Maybe it was a joke, a friend, a mistake. But the mind doesn't rest once doubt settles in. And I had doubt. I started noticing the little things. How he smiled at his phone more often. How he started showering in the evenings too. How he changed the password on his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. He was slipping, and I was watching. I didn't confront him. I didn't sleep that night. I lay wide awake, staring into the shadows on the ceiling, letting my thoughts unravel like threads from a fraying rope. Every second of the evening replayed in my mind. The red coat, the silent exchange, the metal case, the bolted-down chair. What kind of man was I sleeping next to every night? What kind of life had I unknowingly signed up for? By the time the sun rose, my decision was made. I needed answers. Not just guesses, not just fears. I needed facts. I needed to know her name. He was in the shower again when I picked up his phone. This time I was deliberate. I already knew his password. I'd memorized the 4 digits after seeing him unlock it at dinner 2 nights ago, not realizing I was watching through the reflection in the wine glass. 1984. The year he said Orwell wrote his favorite novel. Irony was a bitter flavor in my mouth. The phone unlocked easily. I opened his messages. S was still there. Not many messages. He'd been careful. They were short, vague. "Tuesday worked, same place? Miss your hands, safe for now." I scrolled further. An older message. "You left your badge in my car again, be more careful." That was my first real clue. A badge. I searched through his photos, nothing obvious. He never took selfies. But in one group picture, blurry, taken at a company event, I saw her. Tall, sharp cheekbones, red lipstick, red coat. Her name was in the tag, Serena Langford. It felt like swallowing broken glass. I put the phone back before he stepped out. He kissed my shoulder, wet hair dripping onto my skin. I resisted the urge to flinch. I waited until he left for work. Then I opened my laptop. I typed her name into every search engine, every database I could think of. LinkedIn, company profiles, news articles, even court records. She worked at the same company, in marketing just like he said once in passing. But what he didn't say, what he failed to mention, was that she had been investigated 3 years ago in connection with a fraud scandal at a now-defunct PR firm. No formal charges, no arrest, just her name mentioned quietly and then scrubbed clean. But the internet never forgets. There were whispers in corporate forums. A man had gone missing during the time of the scandal, a whistleblower. His name was Carter Haynes. Serena had worked closely with him. After his disappearance, she left the company, started fresh somewhere else. Now she was here, working with my husband. I stared at the screen until my eyes ached. Then I closed my laptop and sat in silence for a long time. It wasn't just about cheating anymore. It wasn't just betrayal. It was danger. Real, looming, possibly life-threatening danger. That evening, I said nothing to him. We ate dinner. He laughed at a show on TV. He poured us wine. Everything looked the same, but it felt like I was dining with a stranger, wearing my husband's skin. He touched my hand across the table. "You're quiet tonight," he said. The next morning, I walked through the world like a woman newly haunted. Everything looked the same, but it was all haunted, smeared with the knowledge of what I now carried. I wasn't just a wife anymore. I was a spy in my own home, a stranger living among ghosts, watching every detail, memorizing every word. And I knew exactly where I had to go next. The warehouse. I waited until Friday when Daniel said he'd be at a conference all day, the kind that ended with drinks and speeches. He was always well-liked at those things, a man of polished suits and smooth handshakes. Perfect. I dressed plainly. Jeans, hoodie, no makeup. Just another woman in a sea of city faces. I parked a block away and walked, keeping my head down but eyes sharp. The alley looked just as I remembered it, narrow, quiet, stained by rain and oil. The door they had used was locked again, but the same broken window still sat half-shattered beside it. This time I was ready. I'd brought gloves, a flashlight, my phone fully charged, a heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I climbed through the broken window. The moment I stepped inside, everything in me screamed to leave. The air was cold, dead. The warehouse was silent in that unnatural way that makes your skin prickle, like you're not alone even if you can't hear anyone else. Stacks of crates lined the walls, some labeled with fake company names. Others had no labels at all. But it wasn't the crates that made me pause. It was the center of the room. The table, the metal chair, the restraints. This wasn't a storage facility. It was an interrogation site, a place for secrets to be buried, not stored. I walked slowly to the table. Papers still lay scattered across its surface, some with names, others with coded transactions. But one page caught my eye, a profile. Carter Haynes, that name again. There was a small photo paper clipped to the page. A man in his 40s, wire-rimmed glasses, nervous eyes, and next to it a red X drawn in marker. My breath caught. Below his name, asset turned risk, contingency required. Victor on standby. Victor. I didn't know who he was yet, but the name chilled me. It looked out of place on a sheet of corporate summaries and bank routing numbers. Victor wasn't a banker. He was something else. Something lethal. I took photos of everything, carefully, silently. Every page, every name, every number. I was halfway through the stack when I heard it. A door opening, voices. Panic rushed through me like a tidal wave. I grabbed my phone, shut off the flashlight, ducked behind a stack of crates. My breath came fast, shallow. I prayed they wouldn't hear me over the sound of their own boots on the concrete. I peeked through a gap between boxes. Daniel and Serena. He looked different. His face wasn't soft or boyish, it was hard, sharp, like someone who'd made too many cold decisions. He carried himself with a, "You said it was clean," he snapped. "No paper trail." "It was clean," Serena hissed, "until someone accessed the file last night. Remote IP. That's not on me." "You don't think it was her, do you?" Serena paused. "Your wife? You think she's suddenly Nancy Drew?" He didn't answer. "You're slipping, Daniel," she said. You've got too many things in the air, and now Carter's name's floating around again. If Victor gets even a whiff of loose ends, I'll handle Victor. I pressed my hand over my mouth. They were talking about Carter like he was still alive, or worse, still missing. Serena walked to the table. I held my breath. She picked up the same folder I had photographed, glanced at it, then set it back down. "You're lucky," she said. "If your wife is digging, she's still in the dark. If she knew the truth, she wouldn't be breathing." Daniel didn't speak, and that silence told me everything. They weren't just capable of hiding bodies. They were capable of making new ones. I waited until they left. I waited until I couldn't hear the car anymore. Only then did I stand up, knees trembling. I climbed back through the broken window like a fugitive escaping a nightmare. I didn't go home right away. I drove to the edge of the city, to a diner that never closed. I sat in a booth and stared at the photos on my phone. My hands shook, my coffee went cold. And I thought to myself, this isn't just about survival anymore. It's about justice. It's about stopping them, even if it means I lose everything. I knew the name now, but not the face. Victor. It hung over me like a storm cloud, formless, silent, dangerous. The kind of name you didn't forget once it was whispered into your life. I didn't know what he looked like or where he came from, but every time I heard it, my stomach curled in on itself like a dying leaf. I couldn't sleep after the warehouse, not even for a minute. My mind kept racing through every possibility. What if Daniel had seen my car? What if Serena noticed something out of place? What if Victor was already watching me, waiting to clean up the mess I'd accidentally become? I spent the night going over the photos again, one by one, zooming in, every paper, every line of text. I couldn't afford to miss a single detail. That's when I saw it, tucked in the corner of one document, a bank transaction. Small, only $4,800, but the signature line read, V. Kravitz, Victor Kravitz. It wasn't much, but it was a thread. By sunrise, I had a plan. I called Jordan. He picked up on the third ring, voice groggy. "El, you okay? I need a trace run, quiet, private." He didn't ask questions. "Give me a name." Victor Kravitz, might go by just Victor. Connected to off-books transfers, maybe syndicate work. There was a long pause. "Jesus, you sure you want to be involved in this?" "It's too late not to be." He sighed. "All right, give me a few hours." I spent the morning pacing. I kept the curtains closed, double-locked the doors. Every time a car slowed on the street outside, I flinched. At noon, Jordan called back. "You were right to be scared," he said. "Victor Kravitz isn't just muscle. He used to be private security, black ops, unofficial stuff. Then he disappeared for 5 years, reappeared under shell firms tied to weapons shipments and debt collection in the Balkans. He's not a contractor anymore. He's a ghost with knives. And he's working with my husband. If that's true, El, you need to stop playing detective. You need to disappear." "Not yet." "Why?" "Because I still don't know why." There was silence. "You always were the stubborn one," Jordan muttered. "I'll keep digging, but be careful. People who ask too many questions about Victor tend not to finish the conversation." That evening, Daniel came home with flowers. A surprise. Lilies, my favorite, or they used to be. "Rough day?" he asked, kissing my forehead. "Something like that," I said. He made dinner. We talked, or rather, he talked. I watched. His eyes didn't flinch when he mentioned work. His voice was steady, but there was something in his posture I hadn't noticed before. Paranoia. He kept glancing at his phone, checking the windows. He was scared too, which meant whatever was happening, it was slipping from his control. That night, I waited until he fell asleep. Then I opened his briefcase. Inside, I found a second folder. This one was labeled simply, Exit Strategy. Inside were printed plane tickets. Departure. 2 weeks from today. I stared at the tickets until the letters blurred. He was going to leave. Start over. Abandon everything. No note. No goodbye. Just vanish. And if Victor was involved, he wouldn't just disappear quietly. He'd take out every liability first, including me. That weekend, I followed Serena. She left a boutique around noon, coffee in hand, walking like she owned the pavement. I stayed behind her for 3 blocks, then slipped into a rideshare and had the driver trail from a distance. She ended up at a high-rise downtown, not her home, a private building, no signage, just blacked-out windows and a keypad door. I memorized the address. That night, I searched building records. A dummy holding company owned the property. Offshore ties, impossible to trace back to a person. But the tenant history told me enough. One of the names? Victor K. He was here, in the city, within reach. I made a decision I wasn't sure I'd live to regret. I'd go inside. I told Jordan everything. I needed backup and he refused at first. This isn't a game, El. You don't just walk into a nest and come back out. You said it yourself. Loose ends get tied off. I need leverage, something that proves what they're doing, something that forces them into the light. Then you're going to need something bigger than phone photos. Exactly. So I need you to watch the street while I go in. He swore under his breath, but he agreed. We picked Sunday evening. I wore black, a cap, gloves. My heartbeat felt like a countdown. The keypad was old tech. Jordan had the codes within 2 minutes. I slipped inside. Dim lights, marble floor, silence like death. Up 3 flights, I found the office. Door cracked, light on. And there, on the wall, screens, security feeds. Inside, file boxes, labeled with initials. Haynes, Langford, Evans, and mine. I stepped closer. My name, my photo. Notes about where I went, who I talked to. Even my meeting with Jordan was listed. They were watching me. They've been watching me for weeks. I took everything I could. Phone photos, a USB drive off the desk, a folder marked Client Read. I didn't even read it. I just stuffed it in my bag and ran. Back out the door, down the stairs, into Jordan's car. We didn't speak for 10 minutes. Then I whispered, I have them. I have everything. He looked at me, white-knuckled on the wheel. Then we have to move. Now. Because once they knew that I had the truth, they wouldn't just come for me. They'd come to erase me. We didn't go home. Jordan drove us to a safe house 2 hours outside the city. A crumbling farmhouse owned by his cousin who worked nights and didn't ask questions. The place smelled like dust and old wood, but the locks were solid and there were no cameras. I didn't unpack. I couldn't. Every creak in the walls felt like a warning. Every shadow outside the window could be a watcher. But somehow being away from Daniel gave me enough clarity to think. It was time to go on the offensive. I opened the folder marked Client Read. Inside were photos, not of Carter or Serena or even Victor, of me. Me sitting at my desk, me walking to the store, me having coffee with Jordan, and a final page. Asset unstable, risk increasing, schedule termination. The date circled, this coming Thursday, 4 days from now. I wanted to throw up. They were going to kill me, I whispered. Jordan stared at the page. Not anymore, now we expose them. We can't just go to the police, they'll be inside too. Victor has people everywhere. He tapped the USB. Then we don't go to the police, we go public. The next day we uploaded everything to a private journalist I trusted, a woman named Fiona I'd met during a charity scandal years ago. She owed me. I called in the favor. Within 6 hours, she had everything. Documents, photos, texts, names. She promised to start digging and to publish as soon as she could verify the pieces. But even with the press on our side, we weren't safe. Because Daniel didn't know I was alive. Not yet. I made the call 2 nights later. He answered on the second ring. El? His voice cracked like dry ice. Where are you? You thought Victor had taken care of it already? Silence. I know everything, Daniel. Serena, the warehouse, Carter, the exit strategy. He didn't deny it. He didn't even breathe. Why? I asked. Was it about money, power, or were you just bored with me? He finally spoke. It was never about you. You were the only real thing I ever had. You think that makes it better? You lied, you conspired, you were going to leave me, or worse. I didn't know about the termination. Serena did that, Victor. He's off script now. I lost control. Then help me fix it. What? Confess. To who? To the world. I'm giving this story to a reporter. You have 24 hours to tell your version. If you don't, it all goes live without you. He was quiet, then slowly, where should I send the statement? He confessed the next morning. A signed affidavit naming Serena and Victor as operatives in a corporate blackmail and extortion ring. He gave locations, timelines, names I hadn't even uncovered yet. It wasn't redemption, but it was leverage. The journalist published her expose the same afternoon. It exploded. Within hours, federal agents raided 3 locations, including the warehouse. Serena's face was on every news channel. I returned home the next week, escorted by federal protection. The house felt foreign, too clean, too silent. Every room held echoes of a life I didn't recognize anymore. Daniel was arrested, Serena vanished, and Victor? He was still out there. But I wasn't the same woman I used to be. I wasn't afraid anymore, because I'd learned something in the silence, in the shadows. Sometimes survival isn't just about running. Sometimes it's about standing still and letting the truth burn everything down. They say justice brings peace. They say truth will set you free. They don't say what happens when the truth puts a target on your back. It had been 10 days since the article broke, 10 days since Daniel's arrest, since Serena vanished, since Victor's name scorched across headlines and intelligence briefings like a ghost caught in daylight, and still no sign of him. Jordan stayed close. Federal agents rotated protection detail, but none of them made me feel safer, not really. Because deep down I knew Victor wasn't gone. He was waiting. The night it happened, I felt it before it began. A prickling at the base of my neck, a stillness outside the window, like the air itself was holding its breath. I checked the locks. Again, I hadn't been sleeping anyway. At 2:17 a.m., the power cut out. Total silence, total darkness. I grabbed the emergency flashlight and my phone. The federal agent on shift didn't answer. I tried the backup line. Nothing. That's when I saw him. A silhouette outside the window. Not running, not hiding, watching. Victor. He was real. He was here. And he wasn't running anymore. I didn't panic. I didn't scream. I reached under the bed for the panic button Jordan had installed and pressed it twice. If the signal got through, agents would be here in 6 minutes. I had to survive for 6. I grabbed the USB backup I'd hidden under the floorboard and slid it into my jacket. If he was coming for me, he wouldn't leave with the story. Not this time. A crash downstairs. Footsteps. I locked the bedroom door and barricaded it with the dresser. My hands didn't shake. My thoughts were laser-focused. The handle jiggled, then stopped. Then, his voice. Eleanor, my name, like ice water in my veins. You've made a lot of noise, but noise is not justice. It's just panic, and panic ends. I said nothing. You think you've won. You think publishing our names changes the world, but you're wrong. The people who matter already knew, and they didn't care. He was right in a way. The machine never stopped, only slowed. You think you're a whistleblower, you're a liability. I spoke for the first time. You're right. I'm a liability, but I'm also bait. He paused. Bait for what? Outside. Tires. Boots on gravel. A floodlight snapped on from the outside yard. Shouts. Federal agents, hands where we can see them. The door burst open behind him. I caught a glimpse. Black coat, sharp jawline, emotionless eyes. Victor turned to run, too late. Mida da. He hit the ground hard. Tackled. Cuffed. For the first time I saw him restrained. Powerless, human. I collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Not from fear, not even relief, but from release. It was over. Foxus is your damagement to share. The Turgle becomes the hours of lining. The reported were body about the Attila migrant system. Field a nice of line, what is a period? Researches aid who care. For second hell to backs help self. The reported was into the board that mat the benefits in working. As for me, I vanished. New identity, new life, somewhere quieter, somewhere without echoes, but I never forgot. The shadows still whisper, the scars still itch, but I survived. I burned it all down, and from the ashes I walked away whole.